Let's react to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's top 25 as we head into the conference championship weekend. Ohio State, Alabama, my goodness, send some flowers to the playoff committee. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, please hit that subscribe button. If it is your 38th time watching and you still haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you've been an OG who knows what I'm not on a step mill is and you still haven't subscribed, I don't know what else it is that I'm going to be able to tell you to get you to subscribe to the channel, because we've gone over 120,000 subscribers. This is very, very cool. I'd like to get to 121, and we're almost there before we get to the conference championship games that begin on Friday with Boise State playing against UNLV. And this is also interesting for a number of reasons. One is Boise State wins. They're probably not just going to get into the college football playoff in its first 12-team format year. They're also going to get a first-round bye as one of the top 4 highest-ranked conference champions. That is important. One of the things that I've been trying to stress to people is you do not slot the conference champions from the Power 4 into those top 4 spots. We think that's how it would go, but that's not how this committee would want to go. As a matter of fact, if you are reading the rules and regulations like you would be if you are a Formula 1 aerodynamicist, which, I play one on F1 Manager, you would see all the things that aren't there. Like, this College Football Playoff Selection Committee could rank 12 teams that aren't conference champions, and that could be it. So if they wanted to go with Kent State, UConn, Purdue, anybody else you think is bad, they have that within their purview. Now, we would riot, and we would call BS, but they could do it. This is what I call the choose violence criteria. And they are operating on the choose violence criteria when they are ranking a Boise State ahead of, say, a Big 12 champion, Arizona State or Iowa State at a minimum. But this also works if Clemson were to upset SMU in the ACC championship, where Clemson, we think, would be into the college football playoff, but not as one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champions if Boise State were to win. But if Boise State were to lose and both of those Big 12 champion, the Big 12 champion and ACC champion, that's going to be your spots there. I think this is going to get more interesting if we get some results that aren't chalk. Aren't chalk just means that the team that we didn't think was going to win wins that one, right? So the teams that we know are going to get in basically end at Indiana, right? So we think that Indiana is going in as an 11-win team. Ohio State gets to host Tennessee right now in what would be a raucous playoff game, and I think that would be outstanding, be a lot of fun to watch that game. Also, 2 teams that I think are basically evenly matched. And that's also a game that if you're Ohio State, you really would like. You think you match up well against Tennessee, and Tennessee believe the same. Also in here, Bama, who gets into this thing if Boise State holds its water. If Boise State gets upset by number 20 UNLV, that might be a problem, right? Same thing is true for Clemson upsetting SMU. What you want if you're Bama or if you're one of these teams on the bubble that's barely getting in is for the chalk to hold. Is Bama one of the 12 best teams in college football? Probably. Is it better than Miami? I think certainly. But Miami did it to themselves. You can't just look at their record. You have to look at how they got their record. And those of us that have been watching Miami play football, unlike some ESPN analysts, would tell you it's just as easy they could be 7-5 as they are 10-2. And their losses are to unranked opponents and opponents that we think they should beat, right? Now, Georgia Tech took Georgia into 8 overtimes, but Georgia ended up winning that football game, and Miami ended up losing to Georgia Tech. Same sort of tactics. Basically, they play SEC football when they're playing well, which is to run the football and sit on you defensively. Really great stuff from them. I think Alabama's also got a pretty good resume. They're 3-1 against top 25 teams according to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's top 25, but I think that's kind of manipulative because I rank teams from the preseason onward, and I think that if a team had a number next to their name at any point in time, you count that as a ranked win. I think anything else is ridiculous because at the time we thought that team was really good. What happens when we play football games, somebody wins and somebody loses. Like, that's how this works. So, like, Nebraska's 5-1 when Indiana drops 56 on their skull, and all of a sudden we're trying to say that Nebraska's not any good because they finished 6-6. I don't think that holds water at the time that we're playing the football games because we would have penalized Indiana for losing that football game if they did. They did not. So I think we're back to this. Also in here is, what are we going to do with Arizona State, Iowa State? The winner of that, should they argue that they should be one of these top teams? And what are we going to do with only one Big 12 team getting into the college football playoff when it's got 16 teams in that league and maybe 3 that could be in that thing? And also your highest ranked Big 12 team is Arizona State at 15. This despite Colorado having 9 wins and Iowa State having its first 10-win season in school history, and Arizona State going from 3-9 to 10-2 this year. It feels like they just don't care, and that you got a South Carolina ranked ahead of them. Okay, I understand some of this, but not all of this. I think that if you're going to put South Carolina in that spot, you're going to use my logic, which is that they were ranked, the teams they ranked or played were ranked at one point or another, and that they've beaten up enough of them. Say nothing of Syracuse upsetting Miami, and you're rewarding them for upsetting Miami when we all know that Miami was a paper number 6 and not a really good number 6. Meanwhile, Ohio State is a very good number 6 and not a paper number 6. Penn State, I think, is going to get into this thing, but we still don't think that Penn State is that good. Matter of fact, I would love to see Indiana and Penn State play each other. I just don't think that's going to be the case or how that's going to go. I also think that we got to take into account Georgia in this thing. If Georgia loses to Texas, does Georgia get in the college football playoff? I don't think they should. I think a 1-point win against Kentucky is telling us a lot because Kentucky went 4-8. They were not good to begin with, and they seemed to be good that one time they played Ole Miss, but Ole Miss turns out to be not that good. They lose to this Bama team, but Bama lost to Vanderbilt. Bama also lost to Tennessee. Again, we're looking at a team that took a bad loss to Oklahoma at 5-5, and we're going to act like that didn't happen. That's ridiculous. Like, Oklahoma's the squad, right? But it's not a good football team. It's a 6-6 football team at the end of the year. It was never fronting like it was good, unlike Nebraska. What I'm saying is, all that happened for Oklahoma is it continued to just go into the tank. So much so that you fire the offensive coordinator halfway through the season, and they beat you with an interim offensive coordinator. So maybe Georgia goes down to that Bama spot, Bama gets kicked out, but you can't have Bama and Georgia into this 12-team college football playoff. I don't think it's going to work if Georgia loses to Texas. Now, there are lots of Georgia fans that think that, hey, we had the same argument, didn't we? And then Georgia went to Austin and stomped a mud hole in Texas and walked it dry. Cool. I think it's a different Georgia football team that we're seeing now, and I think it's a different Texas football team we're seeing now. And if Carson Beck is your best player, you're going to lose this football game. Full stop. You need your best player to be on defense. You don't need your best player to be Carson Beck. You need Carson Beck to operate the offense, not throw the ball to other people. You need Malachi Starks, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams to make it do what it do, baby, so that you can go put the clamps down on an otherwise struggling Texas offense. They run the football a lot more now than they did at the start of the year, but that's because they can, and that's because they're looking to finish games, not because they need to go and outscore opponents. And I think in a perfect world, that's exactly what Steve Sarkisian would want to do. Last thing that I wanted to point out here is that with this Boise State thing, you have an opportunity to maybe even move up a spot, right? So if Ashton Jeanty goes for 341 yards, he will have broken Barry Sanders' record of 2,628 yards with 2,629 in the Mountain West Championship game, en route to a 12-1 season conference championship. Would they be the third highest ranked conference champion as opposed to the fourth highest ranked conference champion? I think that's worth looking at, especially if Clemson upsets SMU. You have an opportunity here, if you're Boise State, to press your advantage. So you should break the DRS and get that 1.1 seconds ahead so that maybe you can get an even more favorable matchup, because I think you really want to be in the 5 seed right now if you're in the college football playoff. You get the home game, you get the weakest opponent, then you get the weakest conference champion, highest ranked conference champion, which would be, in this case, Clemson or Boise State. If you're Boise State, you don't want that number 5 seed. If it's Notre Dame, if it's Ohio State, you don't want them. You just don't. You want to put that off for as long as you can, play against opponents that are much more in your weight class before you get the what for and the how now against somebody that absolutely can run down Ashton Jeanty or can stop Maddox Madsen from operating and can really go after your defense with better players. All said, this is making for a really entertaining conversation. This is built for talk shows like the one that I do, so I'm having a really great time. What do you think about the college football playoffs top 25 ranking going into this conference championship weekend? Tell me what they got right. Tell me what they got wrong. And I'll hit you in the comments. Deuces.